Good evening, good morning, and good night. Welcome to Inappropriate Radio. It's your host, Tashana, the hostess with the mostest. Let's get into this. So, I'm going to apologize for any background noise in advance. And I also wanted to just tell you guys that my schedule and my movement has changed. So I apologize for the late uploads, okay? No, we're not going into the periodic table. The creator just wanted me to have this particular conversation. Yesterday and the day before, we actually had a conversation about autism and whether or not it is a result of a spiritual barrier that is blocking the children from being able to communicate, right? And I thought that the conversation was done. Yesterday, while at work, I told you guys I work with children. The conversation came back up about, this prevalence of autism and how the rate of, the children coming up today have a higher level, much more a higher rate of autism than we've ever seen before. And of course, because this condition lies on the spectrum, the cause can range and it goes from one extreme to the next, right? But the creator wanted me to focus in on something and just go backwards a little bit about DNA, right? Because this is all connected, right? As we know. This was basically just to prove or to tell how we evolve, right? You don't necessarily hear about any of the kids today having chickenpox, having measles, things like that. I'm not even sure if people still catch shingles, right? And of course, this is in the same family as herpes, right? It's in the same, class or category, if you will. It's the same strand in a nutshell. So does this mean we're going to be, immune to herpes in a few years? Or are we already there? Is COVID just the beginning of the new diseases that are coming? And the kids today not having things like chickenpox and measles, and I don't even think people catch polio anymore. It's not just the vaccines, it's us being born, right, had already been susceptible to those particular conditions, right? And then after having a child where you may have had it, right, your genes or your DNA had become exposed to it, and then you get to pass it over, right? You get to pass it down. So this is a prime example of how we are evolving as a people and how we have so many other things to look forward to, good and bad, that will allow us to see how we're developing and transitioning and progressing as a human race. Obviously, this doesn't really have anything to do with race, right? Or not even culture. This is mainly one of those things that allows us to have a good depiction of what it means to just flow and grow. Many of us have this misconception, right, that if I went through it, my kids are going to go through it. But the thing is, your children should not go through it because you did go through it. That's the overall premise here, to be able to pass down a better quality or a higher quality, so your children or everyone coming behind you doesn't have to experience what you experienced, right? This isn't one of those things where you get to just say, hey, I experienced something and I'm going to be able to tell you how to fight it. No, this is one of those things where it's like, I experienced it. I've got the worst of the worst. Now let's move forward. It's not the easiest thing to do, right? It's not just so simple to just wake up and say, hey, I suffered from something or I am suffering from something, and I need assistance, or because you don't really know anyone who has gone through this, you can't really offer support. So it's the same thing like with COVID. I mean, I'm sure they had conditions 50 to 100 years ago, right, that our elders had to deal with that may have effects on the lungs and the respiratory system, and just your ability to communicate and move about, right? And it puts everyone in a state of fear. I'm sure there are some conditions that are really, really similar, right? But I mean, how can the parents, right, of today be taught anything about, how can they teach their children anything about COVID other than what we have in front of us, right? There's no long line of people before us who've dealt with this, so they don't necessarily have a particular, I would say, talk, right? There's no remedy against it. It's not like the things that we've dealt with back in the day and they've dealt with. This is like a literal new generation of just conditions. And of course, there are people who've dealt with this, and it was thought to be because of inbreeding. But obviously, if you have people who are doing witchcraft and creating children out of magic, who live in toxic environments, who are consuming products that are not good for the development of a fetus, of course, right? These things affect the child, and it affects the overall genetic sequence. So yeah, it may be hard to have a better understanding of how to deal with these things because they're foreign to us. No one has dealt with these things, so they don't really have direct information that can be passed down to assist with handling or dealing with these things. So this is just one of those conversations to really get us to pay attention to the evolution of us. And this goes without saying, obviously this is a physical evolution. And because things happen in the spirit first, I would assume that all of the things that are going on in the ethers, they will start to trickle down in another few generations, right? Maybe 3 or 4 generations. So I'm assuming what's happening with COVID, and a lot of people have predicted this, right? They were waiting. They knew. They prophesized it. Some people were prepared already, right? Depending on, the revelation or where they are geographically, there were certain precautions that had been taken. But once you start to evolve to a point of complete foreignty, like, I don't even know if that's a word, but when you reach a level of just being in a state of just lack of awareness, right? What can you teach? What is it that you can assist with for people to have a better understanding on how to function? Like, what type of information or resources do you have to aid in growing through this? Not many, because it's not something that our elders taught us how to handle. We don't know how to handle it. Those before us don't know how to handle it. Even if it's something similar, like faintly familiar to what we're dealing with. And I brought up COVID just because that's something that everyone was affected by. But this conversation mainly started out as a result of discussing autism, right? This had a lot to do with us evolving and then not evolving, being stuck in this space, having this particular thing to deal with that we don't know anything about. And of course, I'm not picking, but this is not something that people in Black and brown communities are familiar with dealing with, right? This is mainly a result of, if you will, different scenarios and situations that we're stuck with the end result. This is what we've been left with. And of course, we've had the conversation of magic being used to create babies, block people, hinder people, to keep certain cycles going. This is one of the ways that God is punishing people, because 9 times out of 10, depending on where the child is on the spectrum, they're not going to be procreating. So this is one of the ways that the Creator puts a stop to the nonsense that is being perpetuated through these children. It's also just a sign of, God saying, hey, I told you to be obedient. You were not obedient. So this is what it is that you're going to have to deal with. And, of course, we use the chickenpox and the COVID as examples. But like I said, autism was the main topic because this is one of those things that is increasing across many diasporas. And we don't really have a real cure for it. We don't have a real understanding. A lot of people are completely confused on what any of this even, what it means, right? How to navigate it. And before we go, I just wanted to make sure that people understand I'm not picking. Obviously, if you're using magic to spiritually attack people or just do things just because you can, then obviously, I don't know what to tell you, but just stop doing magic on people, right? But if you're someone who you have been burdened with this responsibility of having to care for a child that is sick, and you don't really know how to remedy the situation, my advice to you would be to simply have this conversation with the Creator on what it is that you could be doing to make the situation a little lighter. How to understand, do a fast for your child, to get a breakthrough, because we see people, send their children to speech therapy and different, clinics for different types of assistance, and a lot of people get the breakthrough that they've been waiting for. You have to ask, is this God's plan, or is this something that was manipulated through medicine, or was magic thrown at you to stop your child? Was any womb magic done to in an attempt, right, to prevent your child from being born? Like, these are all different types of situations, and everyone has a different situation. So I would definitely, do a fast, pray. A lot of these doctors can't really tell you much of anything because they don't know. They don't know, right? And the people that do know, they're part of the reason why we're suffering. So they're only going to give you with so much information. Okay? A lot of people are not going to be willing to help you because it's not going to help them to help you. You have to remember that as well. If you are sick, if you are in need of any type of assistance, and people who are providing that can benefit from that, they're going to want to keep you in that position because it gives them leverage over you. But yeah, we're evolving. What's the overall point of this topic, okay? But I do love y'all. I hope y'all are drinking y'all water and eating y'all fruit and vegetables and sipping on your own tea, because what is free? And I hope y'all enjoyed y'all weekend. I hope y'all are getting ready for this cold and for Thanksgiving, right? We're doing a bullet making class next. I'll keep you guys posted. Alright, but I'm gonna go ahead and get up out of here. Love y'all. Peace.